Hello, everyone. I welcome you to this informative session today. And we have with us Dr. Ajay Pandya, my predecessor, mentor, and guide, and the boxer as a boxer president before I joined this office. Dr. Ajay Pandya was a meritorious student of St. Xavier's School, outstanding both in studies and sports. I have memories of him running and winning races, taking his ostrich strides. He has done his MBBS from Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose Medical College, Jabalpur, and specialized in orthopedics. Started his career with FCI Sindri Hospital and later switched over to private practice. It is from Sindri days that he pursued the age-old veteran tradition of community service. During the crucial COVID period, he had organized a blood donation camp in memory of his classmates Geeta Bajaj and Jyotish Sinha during the Golden Jubilee celebrations in 2016. Ajay is a proud father of two engineer daughters, one in USA and the other in India presently. I wish him all luck to continue his good work. Welcome,
Thank you,
Ajay.
Madhulika, for those kind words. But I feel a little nervous because the person that I'm going to introduce is a far more successful man. And in the end, you and all the others will discover that I'm just a candle in front of the sun. Good evening, Father. Good evening, the supporting staff, especially Mr. Abhishek, and good evening, school teachers and parents who have joined us. And finally, good evening and welcome, Boxons. You know, the word sounds as if we are a bunch of boxers, the boxer word. And in fact, our batch were a group of boxers when we were in school. Anyway, jokes apart, I was very glad to find that there was a deluge of interest by the Boxons to join this meet in response to the post given by our president, Madhulika. It is fortunate that we have Dr. Anil amongst us, who is also a boxer. He is a highly qualified person with vast experience and a great orator. If I keep on speaking about his qualifications, his experiences, and his achievements, then in the end, I think Dr. Anil himself will have little time to talk to you. So here is a brief introduction. I can say Anil and I share certain similarities. You know, both are from the same school, both are doctors. His and my name begins with the letter A. His name is Anil, and my elder brother's name was Anil too. But that is where the similarity ends. From this point, he just moved on and opened up a gap so big, so much so that I remained a dwarf and he a colossal. Despite his achievements, he is a very modest person. He is a thorough gentleman. He is mild in his mannerism, and his conduct with the patient is exemplary. Dr. Anil believes in 3 points. I mean, there are 3 points on the principle he has. Number 1, my patient is my top priority. Each patient, number 2, each patient is unique. And number 3, each patient must get the best treatment. Based on these principles, he has built up his career, a very successful career. Dr. Anil is a die-hard academician. He has presented papers in various conventions the world over. He believes in imparting and spreading the knowledge of medical science. In fact, last night only, he was invited to an international convention where he presented a paper on COVID, and it was very well received. After his schooling from St. Xavier's School, Bukharo, and we are all proud that we share the same alma mater. Dr. Anil completed his MBBS from Pandit JNM Medical College, Raipur. During this time, he was a recipient of Merit Scholarship. After that, he did his post-graduation in medicine. That is, he did his MD in medicine from the same medical college. Usually, after the post-graduation, most of the doctors, they start practice, but not Anil. His hunger for knowledge, in search of his hunger for knowledge, he went to Bombay Hospital, Bombay, to get trained in oncology and hematology. And then to augment it, he joined CMC Hospital, Vellore. What followed was a deluge of fellowships that he acquired in various prestigious institutes in US. In 2019, he received the Lifetime Achievement Award for cancer care and cancer service. The topic today is on food, and therefore it is imperative that I inform you that he was invited by Radio Mirchi to speak on genetically modified food that cured cancer. He spoke on modified lifestyle of patients so that cancer doesn't come back. And then he talked about immunotherapy. He informed the public that the cancer treatment is now becoming affordable. Still on food, he has many other lectures. Thank you very much. Over to you, Dr. Anil.
Thank you, Ajay. Thank you. That was a very, very exhaustive introduction. Thankful to all my friends at Boxa and at the school. And I'm really thankful to Father for giving me this opportunity to meet you and everybody else. Initially, what started off as the treatment of hypertension of Madhulika has now become a large affair of more than 100 people joining in. So, Madhulika, you are blessed. So, so Madhulika knows about the joke. So this whole idea started off with getting her hypertension treated, and I suggested that why not treat everybody else's hypertension as well. Let me tell you about my whole journey as to how I reached to this stage of development of principles of improving your health. Now, this was me myself in 2005 and 2006. This is me in Chicago with Dr. Khandekar, who was my mentor and coach in cancer. And I was doing all right health-wise. I was pretty much okay, average looking, no issues. And then this was the same session. And this was the right-hand picture is in 2006, where I went and gave all those lectures in Hollywood. And so I was doing all right. But gradually what happened was, this is 2007 in Chicago. Now here you can see that I started to get a little bit plumpier, and there appeared some swelling on my face. I was a bit worried about it. I consulted a lot of colleagues, and we did a lot of tests, but nothing came abnormal at all. And we just couldn't find a reason for this swelling. So I just plowed on, and then I think in 2012, this was me. You can see the swelling on my face and the eyelids. It was more in the morning, and in the meanwhile, I suffered a heart attack, and I had a bad coronaries. The angiography was done, angioplasties were done, and all the 3 vessels were found to be blocked, and they had to put multiple stents into my heart. And then I recovered from that operation. There was a little bit of cholesterol issues and so on. So I did what everybody does and went through my treatments, and I recovered. Now this was me, I think this is somewhere in the US in 2014. So I don't look too bad, but compared to previous time, you will see that there is again this kind of swelling on the face, and most people would ascribe this to aging, that is the normal aging phenomena. But I found this to be pretty disturbing, but still we could not find a reason for all this. And meanwhile, I was continuing my recovery from my heart problem, and I was taking aspirin and other drugs, statins and stuff, just like everybody else. So I have always been of a very curious bent of mind. I always try to explore new avenues. If something comes up, I always go and see what it is all about. So I think it was in 2016 that I was on a flight to Abu Dhabi for a conference. And just as I was boarding the flight, I got an email regarding this, the Wild Fit, the evolution of fitness. This was a program which was run from Canada by this gentleman, and he was promoting this, that we should join this program. Now this program was promoted by a company by the name of Mind Valley. Maybe you've heard about it. So they said that why don't you join, and we will take you through 12 weeks of diet change. And the basic fundamental behind this was this, that if you were to go and look at the Bushmen living in Africa at the current time, presently, who have no access to civilization, this is how they look. Look at their fitness, look at their muscles, and look at their total non-obese stature. They do not go to gyms, they do not take any health foods, they do not take any supplements, but they are amazing. They don't have diabetes, they don't have heart disease, no issues. So this gentleman, Ben, he went and lived with them, and that is where he started his research, and that is how the program developed about Wild Fit, like being fit just like as you are in the wild, because the nature has made you to be like this. So he was going to simulate the whole environment for us just like this and achieve the same health benefits just like this. It was a program of 3 months, and in 3 months they were going to do one minor change every week, and for a total of 3 months. Now the promoter of Mind Valley is this guy Vishen. He went through this program, and this was his change in his body in a difference of 9 weeks, without any exercise and without any other thing, just adjusting the diet. So this was pretty amazing to me, and I was very curious about it. And when I reached Abu Dhabi, I decided to join this program. It was not a cheap program; it was pretty expensive, but they gave us this thing that if I'm not satisfied within a month, I can always apply for a refund. So that seemed fair enough, and so I joined the program. So we made small changes every week. 1,200 people did it all over the world together, and there was constant coaching via social media and via Zoom calls, and there was support given via Facebook group. So things started to change significantly. Now I lost all my facial swelling. I lost about 5 kg weight. I had consistent hyperacidity, and I used to take acidity medicines for the last 20 years, which completely disappeared. I used to sleep better. I no longer had to take any sleep medicine. My brain fog improved. I used to have a lot of brain fog. Like in the afternoon, I used to feel very sleepy. And when I was visiting hospitals or visiting meetings in the hospitals or doing my training abroad, there was an issue with that. Energy levels improved. And as I said, facial swelling disappeared. So this was a transformation which happened in a period of 3 months. And then gradually that hooked me to this thing about things which are there but we don't know. So why don't I go and study more? So I took it up from there, and I continued my study, and I found newer and newer stuff and newer principles. I tried to employ them and try to experiment with them, and I'm still doing it. So I'm still like doing this now. So what has been the difference? This is the difference. This is what I looked last year. This is February on 2020. And then this is another picture from last year, before the just as the lockdown was kicking in. This is my friend who is a postgraduate medical student, and so you can contrast this appearance. So this is me in 2016, and this is me now. This was last year in the summer. So obviously something works. So let us see what works and what does not work. And so before we start this, let me take a quiz, and you can give your answers to yourself about these questions. Do you need to exercise to lose weight? What do you think? Yes or no? Is high cholesterol bad for you? Yes or no? Is a low fat diet really healthy? Yes or no? Is whole grain better than polished grains? Yes or no? Now, should we eat everything in moderation? मतलब हिंदी में कहते हैं थोड़ा थोड़ा सब खाना चाहिए. Do you believe in this? Yes or no? So keep your answers to yourself, and then let us go through the next 45 minutes and see where you land up with these questions and answers. Now let me give you a warning. When you are going to listen to this stuff, this stuff is going to shock you. This stuff is going to surprise you. This stuff is going to challenge your beliefs. So I make a request to you. Keep your beliefs to one side, just as I did when I started all this stuff. So keep your beliefs to one side and go outside your comfort zone, and then listen to the new knowledge, test the new knowledge, and see what happens. Is that really right? That is the path to growth in any field of life. So now, if you go back to your great grandfathers, and you would see, if you talk about the great grandfathers, you would know that they used to slowly grow old, and at a ripe old age, they used to die. They used to leave us. And when we talked about ourselves, hey, how did your great grandfather die? And you say, oh, they died of old age. उनकी उम्र हो गई थी इसलिए वो चले गए. Right? You remember? Certainly, that was the case. But now what happens? Now, suppose your father or somebody elder to you leaves you. What do they leave? They die of heart disease, they die of cancer, they die of chronic lung disease, stroke, Alzheimer's, diabetes, and kidney. What has changed? Something has changed. So how would it be to die young at a ripe old age? That is what the great grandfather used to do. They were fit till the right end, till the very end. So can we not keep that as an objective and go forward? With that, let us come to the first section of my talk, which is on wheat. Now, 10,000 years back, before 10,000 years, man did not know about wheat. Remember, man as Homo sapiens has almost a history of 1,000,000 years. Now, before 10,000 years, which is like about 2% of our history, we never used to know about wheat. But then hunters and gatherers noticed this grass, and they found that this grain which animals eat. And then what they did is they picked it up, and then they dried it, and then they stored it, they ground it up, and lo and behold, they now had a food which they could store for use in winters, which they could use in times when there was no food around. So that was something which was new. But the wheat at that time was known as einkorn wheat, which had 14 chromosomes. But then, over a period of centuries and centuries, wheat also mutated, wheat mated with other plants, and then we had, in the Middle Ages, emmer wheat, which was 28 chromosomes. And then finally, further, there was mutations in the wheat and polymorphisms, and the spelt wheat or the tritium land races developed later on, about a few hundred years back, and that is of 42 chromosomes. Right? So that is the modern wheat which we had, and this was the wheat which our great grandfathers were eating, the tritium land races. That was till the 1960s. And in the 1960s, there was a big drought all over the world, famine. And this famine was horrible, killed a lot of people. And there was always something, some or the other people saying, do something about it, do something about it. And finally, this gentleman by the name of Norman Borlaug came along, and this is his photograph in Mexico. and he was a scientist, and he started experimenting with the wheat, and he put wheat through various mutations and various other chemical changes, and with that he was able to change the wheat crop completely. So the wheat which was shoulder height was then made much short, and he actually mated wheat with different grasses and different strains, thousands of genetic experiments, and he succeeded. And because he succeeded, he was honored by Life magazine, and he was given the Nobel Peace Prize. And what did he succeed in? He succeeded that the wheat is now this big. It is not shoulder height, and this is Norman Borlaug on Life magazine, and he found and he was able to make the wheat 15 times more productive per acre. In doing that, he ushered in the Green Revolution, and famine was completely ended. Everybody had enough wheat to eat, and everybody was happy, including the farmers. But the point here is that all this wheat was no longer the original wheat. This was completely, totally Frankenstein, genetically modified wheat. And this is the wheat that we are now eating all over the world. So, what is the problem now? The wheat that we eat now is an opiate. Opiate means, heroin. So this is cheaper than heroin, but it stimulates the same centers in the brain that opium stimulates. Therefore, it is addictive. Therefore, you want to eat more of it. So actually, it is so bad that Mark Dhamma, I am sure a lot of you have heard about him, and I can bet Himakar can knows hundreds of things about him. So he said, I am seriously shocked to hear that a large amount of entrepreneurs still eat this stuff. This silent brain killer could be sapping your energy, making you tired, suffer from ADHD like symptoms, depress you, and destroy your focus. So it is so bad for your brain. Not only is it bad for your brain, let us see what this does when you eat it and it goes into your intestine. So the gluten in the wheat, which is right there, can trigger the release of a substance known as zonulin. And the zonulin, what does it do? It breaks apart the joints between the cells in your intestine. So there is a break in the intestine, and the intestine becomes leaky and inflamed. This break in the intestine then allows the things which are not supposed to enter your body or your system or your blood enter, like toxins, like bacteria, like viruses. All kinds of microorganisms can go through this leaky gut and enter your bloodstream. Once in the bloodstream, all this foreign substance is there. Your immune system says, hey, what is happening here? And the immune system then says, okay, 1 minute. Yeah. So the immune system then says that we need to take care of it. And therefore, there is a hyperactivity of the immune system. This hyperactivity of the immune system causes inflammation. So there is an immune system which is always fighting, always shooting, and it causes autoimmune disease. So it causes, what is the commonest autoimmune disease? The commonest autoimmune disease is thyroid. I bet you that in each and every person, each and every families of each of you, there will be one person who will be having a thyroid problem. It is so common now. Then obviously it causes a lot of other problems like inflammation all over the body. We will be talking about that very shortly. The other thing what happens is the blood sugar metabolism goes haywire. You have a glycemic index. What do you mean by glycemic index? Glycemic index means that how high does your insulin level go up before when you take 100 grams of glucose. So if you see on the left, this is the blood glucose level which goes up to this level on 100 grams of glucose. And so this is the normal glycemic index for glucose. Now if you eat something and the blood glucose goes higher, then that stuff is higher glycemic index, and if it is lower, then lower. when you take when the blood glucose goes up, your insulin level also shoots up to bring down the blood glucose. Now, when you have a higher glycemic index food, the blood glucose shoot up is much higher, and therefore the insulin also has to go much higher. And this brings down the glucose very fast, and the glucose level actually drops below normal. And this is when you feel really hungry again, you feel really zapped, you feel low energy, and then you reach for food again. So this should not happen. So this is a list of all the foods with their glycemic indexes. Now see here, sucrose, that is the table sugar that you use, has a glycemic index of 59, right? Glucose has 100, sucrose has 59. But look here on the left, wheat has a glycemic index of 51, white bread has a glycemic index of 69, and wholemeal bread has 72. Think about it. That means that if you were to take 2 slices of bread, it will shoot up your glucose more than you took 4 tablespoons or teaspoons of sugar. So wheat has a higher glycemic index than most other foods. So what does that wheat then do to the blood sugar? As the blood sugar is as the wheat gets absorbed, and wheat gets absorbed very fast, it gets digested very fast because of amylopectin A, which is present in the saliva. So there is a overshoot of blood sugar, and because the blood sugar is there in the system, your body makes insulin, and insulin converts all the blood sugar to, you know what, to fat, and the fat is stored up in your belly. And this is how you put on your belly, by increasing more, by eating more and more wheat. So what has happened to weight over the years? If you look from 1960 onwards, the percentage of people who have been obese in the United States has shot up. The percentage of overweight people have shot up. So as the wheat was changed, so did the population started to change into becoming more fat and fatter. Not all, that is not all. Wheat germ agglutinin is another thing which is present in high levels in this mutated wheat. Now, wheat germ agglutinin is a lectin. Now, this lectin is extremely dangerous because it looks like insulin. It has a structure which is similar to insulin. So it attaches to fat cells and asking fat cells to convert more sugar to fat all the time. It attaches to your muscle cells just like insulin. So your muscles cannot get glucose. So the muscles waste. It attaches to nerve cells so that no glucose can enter the brain and the nervous system, and therefore you feel the brain fog and weak. So this is what happens when you take wheat which contains wheat germ agglutinin. And look at what it does to the intestine. This is the intestine of a mouse, and you can see that on the top A is the normal intestine with the villi, and as the mouse is given wheat, the villi starts to degenerate, and finally all the villi are destroyed, and there is a bare intestine, and this intestine can no longer absorb food, and therefore there is a malnutrition. So wheat is responsible for a number of diseases. Now we have all this list here. I'll not go into the details, but it can cause anything from dermatitis to brain problems to neuropathy to iron deficiency anemia to diabetes and all the other. This is just a short list. But the point here is that if you remove wheat, what happens? Now this is tested, tried, and verified. This happened to us during the program. That when you remove wheat, there is a consistent loss of body weight, even though you are eating the same number of calories. You will lose body weight within a few weeks' time consistently if you remove wheat from your system, from the diet. So what happened? When we eliminated wheat, we had weight loss, we had reduced appetite, we had blood sugar reductions. Those people who are diabetic in the program had a control of their diabetes, joint pain went away, inflammation obviously reduced, blood pressure normalized, and then there was a reduction in all the bad cholesterol and stuff. There was increased energy, improved sleep, less acid reflux, and irritable bowel syndrome was also taken care of. So wheat should be removed completely from your diet. Now, I'll point you to certain more resources which I think are important. Now, there are three books which are extremely important because they have been very well written by very highly qualified doctors in America. Now, this is a cardiologist by the name of William Davis, and he wrote this book, Wheat Belly, quite a number of years ago. And there are a lot of YouTube videos with this guy. You should read this book. The second is The Plant Paradox by Stephen Gundry. This guy is a cardiac surgeon, and he discovered all these problems with diet, and now he has left surgery and he is curing all his disease, all his cardiac patients with diet modification alone. This is an amazing book. You can find it on the net. You can find ebook on the net, and you should go through it. The third book is written by David Perlmutter. He is a neurologist. He's a pediatric neurologist in the US, and he talks about how wheat and other grains affect your brain, and they cause dementia and they cause a lot of other problems. This is an amazing book. Once you pick it up, you won't be able to keep it down. So you should get this book also. So with that, let me tell you something. Many of you, or somebody of you, or maybe somebody in your family must be suffering from migraine. Well, they're really intractable headaches, and no matter what you do, sometimes it doesn't work. If you look at the CT scan shows up this bright white matter, prominent white matter on the CT scan. Now, it has been very well now demonstrated that this is also a side effect of gluten, and if you take out gluten or wheat from this person's diet, the migraine just goes away. No medication required. I have tried this with patients and it works amazingly. So with that, let us now, obviously you would have questions. So let us have the questions at the end. If this was a real face-to-face talk, I would have stopped here and discussed with you regarding wheat. But for the point of view of time, I'd like to finish off these things. You note down your questions and we will discuss them at the end. Now we come to sugar. What do you think? Think about it. How much of sugar does an average Indian eat in a year? 5 kgs, 10 kgs, 15 kgs, 50 kgs. How much do you think? Think of a figure amongst yourself. Actually, I can't see the chat window here. Otherwise, I would have seen the chat. But do post it on the chat. So you would be extremely surprised to know that an average Indian eats about 80 kilograms sugar in a year. So what does sugar does to your body? When you eat the sugar, the insulin spikes up, the liver turns the sugar to fat, then blood pressure also rises, and then once you eat your sugar, the dopamine levels in the brain surge, and the high insulin causes glucose levels to plummet, and your body gets tired and asks for more sugar to offset this imbalance. So what happens is once the insulin goes up, it brings down the sugar and your brain craves more sugar, and therefore you feel tired and you eat more sugar. So this is a circle which goes on and on and on. So this is another book in my library, Gary Taubes. Gary Taubes is an amazing guy. He has written a number of books on diet, and he is an investigative journalist, and he has gone through all the studies in detail, and he has written amazing books. So this is another book which is my recommendation that you should really read. So sugar, the brain, what happens in the brain? The brain requires constant supply of energy. So when you take sugar, there is an insulin spike, and then as I told you, there was a high blood sugar, and then the blood sugar falls because of the insulin. When the sugar falls because of the insulin, you will end up with brain fog, because the brain looks for, hey, where is my glucose? Where is my glucose? And the glucose has already gone down, and therefore you eat more. So this brain fog again causes blood sugar because of the sugar. So I don't know how many students are there on this talk, because what I'm going to talk to you now about is extremely important for your kids, For the kids who are listening, do listen very, very carefully. But before I go to the kids, there is another thing I want to tell you. There is something which is known as an advanced glycation end product. What does this mean? This means that when there is blood sugar which is high, it combines with the proteins in your body and produces this AGEs or advanced glycation end products. Now, these advanced glycation end products are no longer useful to the body. They precipitate in various tissues. They are something like this. When your toast is burnt, the burnt part of the toast is of no use. I mean, it doesn't have any value at all. So that is what happens when sugar goes and binds to protein or to fat or any other material in your body, and this produces AGEs. These AGEs are stiff, they are junk, they are of no use, and they deposit in various organs, and they make those organs diseased. You know what happens when you have wrinkles on your face? The wrinkles come up because there are AGEs deposited beneath the skin. This is how they happen. So aging skin has advanced glycation end products beneath the skin which pull it into wrinkles. So the next time, ladies, when you are really thinking about not developing any wrinkles, think about AGEs. We don't want AGEs. So when you are youthful, you are looking less fantastic, and you go and take your ice cream and all the other goodies and all the sugary stuff, you end up with wrinkles all over your appearance. So think about it. So not only the skin, they are deposited everywhere in your body. So what happens is there is liver failure, there is hypertension, there is inflammation, there is heart disease, diabetes, even cancer has been linked to AGEs. So AGEs should be really taken care of. So there are, if you look on the net or maybe sometime in another meeting, I'll tell you about the number of AGEs in each food that you're eating. And you will find that you will be surprised at some of the values. So that was about AGEs. Then what about dementia? It was found that those people who had diabetes or those people who had a high blood glucose levels had more cognitive declines. 5,000 people were monitored over 10 years. Higher the blood sugar, the faster the decline in cognition. They were not required to be diabetic. Even a high blood sugar below the diabetic level was associated with decline in cognition. Therefore, Alzheimer's disease actually is now becoming so common that Alzheimer's will triple in incidence by 2050. Every 3 seconds currently, someone in the world develops dementia or Alzheimer's. This is extremely scary, extremely frightening. And this Alzheimer's is now known as type 3 diabetes, and this is because of the sugar. So, say no to sugar. Brain function is absolutely sent haywire because of sugar. It leads to memory loss, and sugar, as you know, is extremely addictive. It's 8 times more addictive than cocaine. It is extremely difficult to give up. So they did brain scans, spectroscopic scans of the brain, and they found that just as cocaine blunts the dopamine release in the brain. If you see on the left, there is this normal brain which has an orange tinge. This is the dopamine release in the brain. But then when you give cocaine, there is no release, and when you give sugar, there is no release. So it is almost like cocaine when it comes to the brain. So when you take a lot of sugar, what happens? There is a brain fog. There is zoning out. There is difficulty engaging in cognition, difficulty in learning. Memory goes haywire. You start to forget names, dates, events. And this is how things happen. And in kids, in children, you have problems with math and difficulty in concentration and ADHD, all kinds of stuff starts to happen. And in fact, it looks as though like there is another slide. No, it's not here. It is as though your brain has just left for the day. So I still remember when my kids were young and they used to study for their exams, they used to have things to eat during the night in their late night studies. And you know what they used to eat? They used to eat potato chips, and they used to take sugary drinks like Coke or something else. And now I think that if that used to happen, no wonder they used to not remember what they had read in the night before. So ask your kids to keep off all sugary drinks completely. Now sugar has another issue with it, that the non-alcoholic drinks that can lead you to liver disease. Sugar is not only sugar. Sugar has fructose. Now fructose is a not natural sugar. It is unnatural sugar. It is seen high quantities in unseasonal fruits, in fruit juices, and in all your colas, soft drinks. So fructose cannot be metabolized by insulin. So fructose has to be sent to the liver for metabolism. And because if you take a lot of fructose, the liver is overloaded with fructose and it can lead to liver failure, just as though you were drinking alcohol. So should not be taken in large quantities. And if you take fructose in large quantities, this is the way it destroys your body from top to bottom. It will destroy your tooth. So if you have cavities in your tooth, it is likely that you are taking much fructose. You are taking a lot of fruits which are ripened by unnaturally. Alzheimer's, depression, heart disease, hypertension, gout, kidney failure, erectile dysfunction, and fatty liver. You name it, and it is there. So keep away from fructose in high quantities. So to end this matter on sugar, sugar is actually everywhere. If you go on the departmental store and you look at the fine print, you will see sugar everywhere, right from your tomato ketchup to everything else. So it is extremely difficult to eradicate, but you got to work at it. Now think about it. If you owned a race horse, and a race horse is a prized possession, and they are very expensive, you know. So if you have a race horse, you take good care of it, won't you? You won't give the race horse Coke, would you? So if you would give your race horse Coke, why are you taking Coke yourself? Think about it. You are the most precious racehorse for you. So, just like a car or should get the right fuel, you also need the right fuel. And let me tell you something about the right kind of stuff that you can eat. Let me tell you something which you can put into practice right away. So, this is what we were taught during the program. And so you get this stuff. You get things like celery. This is celery, carrot, lettuce, mint. Then this is your palak, Chinese cabbage, broccoli. Then your cabbage, regular cabbage, avocado, and dhania, and red cabbage, and whatever else you can get. The fresh vegetables you can get. Then for seasoning, you can use all kinds of stuff like turmeric and black pepper, and then sea salt. Then you can use obviously lime, you can use ginger, and so on. Or you can basically mix and match as per your taste. Then what you do is you take all this stuff every day in the morning and you blend it in a blender. You get a high speed or a high powered blender and you put it in and liquefy the whole stuff in a blender with some water or ice. Initially you may want to sweeten it a bit. If you want to sweeten it a bit, you can use apple in it or you can use a bit of banana in it. And then you got to drink it first thing in the morning. This is a green smoothie and this contains a lot of goodies in it. And this contains all the plant enzymes, all the iron you need, all the calcium you need, and everything else. And I suggest that you drink at least 1.5 to 2 glasses of it in the daytime, apart from your normal meals, and you will be fine. So this is the green smoothie that you can take. And then let me talk about screening. There are certain blood tests that you can do like you can right away tomorrow or in the coming days, you test out your fasting blood glucose, you test out your HbA1c levels, which will give an average glucose level of the last 3 months. You test your fasting insulin levels, because that is the first thing to go haywire even before the glucose starts to move. If your fasting insulin is high, then you need to really be very, very careful about it. Then you test out your homocysteine, your C-reactive protein to check for inflammation, vitamin D levels. So we're coming back to the quiz again. So do we need to exercise to lose weight? The right answer is no. You can lose weight with diet modification. I'm not saying calorie restriction. I'm talking about diet modification, eating the right kind of foods. I did not take cholesterol in this section of our talk because there was not much time. We'll take it up later. So this question is this thing. I again did not take milk right now. I don't know whether we have time for milk. Is whole grain better than polished grain? No. Yes, whole grain is actually better than polished. No, whole grain is not better than polished grain. Polished grain is better than whole grain because the glycemic index of whole grain is much higher than polished. Besides, whole grain has much higher number of harmful lectins than polished, which we'll discuss sometime later about lectins. Should we eat everything in moderation? क्या हमको सब कुछ थोड़ा थोड़ा खाना चाहिए? My friends, if you eat everything in moderation, you will have health in moderation. You will have disease in moderation. You don't use this word moderation when you talk about earning money, do you? I want to earn money only in moderation. Do you say that to yourself? Those studying, do they target something? I want to earn moderate marks in my life. So, in everything we aim for in life is the highest. Why don't we want to aim for the highest in our health standards? So, if you eat everything in moderation, you will get health in moderation. This is your choice. So these are my contact details for any questions or any guidance or any directions that you need in the future. You can also join us because I conduct this program, which is the 3 months program, which is based on the WildFit program, where we take you through phases of change every week. We have a meeting every week, either in person or through Zoom, and we discuss about things we need to change, why we need to change, and all the other things, including everything. And in this 3 months, we will be progressing through various changes, and you will see definite changes in your health levels, in your energy level, and all the other things. There will be support through WhatsApp, and obviously a lot of study materials, including videos, books, and articles will also be shared during this program. But think about it. If you're really serious about something, yes, I want to do it, then this is an opportunity which I didn't have when I started off. So think about it. कई लोग अभी हमारे लेवल पे कहते हैं हमने तो अपनी जिंदगी के इतने साल जी लिया, अब क्या करेंगे? So it's not right. Every day is the first day of the rest of your life. Fauja Singh started running seriously at the age of 89 years. And he did 26.2 miles marathon at the age of 93 in almost 7 hours. So think about it. So today is the chance to change yourself for the better. My request to you is just make a decision and do it. So thank you for a very patient hearing, and let us have some discussion now. Stop presenting.
You have really shocked us, Dr. Anil.
Okay.
Go ahead, Makar.
Okay, now there is a question. I'll start off with a question if you don't mind. Should wheat be replaced by rice? Okay. And they have asked me to send a contact number. Let me put my contact number 942. Right. So you can replace wheat with other things which are not genetically modified. So what have we found is living in India, we are like slightly more better off. You can replace wheat with jawar. You can replace wheat with bajra. You can replace wheat with obviously rice. Rice is not that genetically modified, but rice also has a high glycemic index. So beware. Don't start eating it in large quantities. But we have changed over to jawar in our home for the last 5 years, and jawar is a good substitute. And it makes up. We make everything with jawar, right from rotis to kachoris to samosas to whatever you want to do with it. Yes, Himakar.
Yeah. First of all, let me thank you, Anil, for a lovely talk, and it's been very revealing. It will be very useful also. I don't take wheat. I stopped taking wheat for the last 2 years. I've stopped taking rice for last several years, except when I go out for parties. But how good is oats? I buy Quaker oats, but as a doctor, how would you recommend these uh, processed foods, oats?
Yeah, that is a very good question, a very important question. Basically, processed foods are no, zero, absolutely, never touch them. And oats, as such, are also processed in facilities which also process wheat. So oats are always having gluten in them. So we don't take oats as well until and unless it is certified that there is gluten free, which you get them in the US, but you don't get them here. So I would be keeping away from oats for the time being. But it's good that you have left rice and you have left wheat. I mean, that is something very, very creditable. And I'm sure you must have found a lot of benefits out of it.
Oh, definitely. I think in the lockdown period, I had to give this up. Otherwise, I would have put on weight. I've maintained my weight, but I'm still not. I feel very heavy after oats. And what you said is right. So yes, I should try something else. Yeah, make my food more fruit based and also vegetables. That helps.
I would suggest you go more on the vegetable side than the fruit side because of the risk with fructose. So, and fruit is nothing but sugar. So you will be again pushing up your insulin levels when you take a lot of fruit. So fruit should be taken in moderation, and fruit should only be taken in season. So don't go and buy something which is not in season, because then it is likely to be artificially ripened. And if it is artificially ripened or genetically modified, then it's really deadly.
So, in short, all good things are illegal, immoral, and fattening, as they say. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Ajay.
I'm a bit confused about the fruits. They say fresh fruit juices are good. So according to you, it contains a lot of fructose.
Yes.
They are bad, is it?
Yes.
Or should I put it this way? If you are taking seasoned fruits or fruit juices, it is all right. But
See,
don't take.
what happens is when you make a juice out of a fruit, you remove the fiber out of the fruit, which is going to help you. So I totally recommend not making any juice at all of any fruit. Take fruit in its natural form, and that is going to be more beneficial. And keep away from fruits again which are not in season.
और आम का सीजन है, so naturally there is a craving for mango. So मेरा HB1C is generally below 7. So what do you suggest? थोड़ा बहुत खा
Well,
सकते हैं.
I think you should be more worried about your diabetes rather than your mangoes. So you can take some mango in moderation, like very small amount of mango, but not more. But आम के season की बात क्या करोगे? You will go and eat papaya, हाँ, which is going to kill your diabetes. It's going to worsen your diabetes like anything. So keep away from all these fruits which have high sugar content, and address your diabetes very aggressively, Chandrima, by changing your food habits, by changing the things you eat, and you will see that once you get rid of the diabetes, then you can eat all the fruit that you want. So, your focus should be right there on your diabetes.
Okay. So, Anil, your talk has been very confusing. You said not to eat wheat, means not for, it's not good for us. Then what do we eat? People say don't eat rice. You're saying don't eat wheat. What do we eat?
Okay, so what I did is from the whole gang, I have picked up the most villainous piece and said, don't do it. Okay, the other pieces are also bad. I'm not saying they are not bad, but this is going to kill you.
Actually, I have a question. Milk and milk products. How good is it for diabetic people?
That throw all the milk out of your window. Don't even look at milk if you want to stay healthy.
Is mango complete no for diabetic?
No. Mango has quite amount of sugar in it. So I would say complete no. You can take small quantities of mango.
Good evening, Dr. Anil. This is Abhishek. I work with St. Xavier's, supporting them on IT front. I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Right?
Thank you for the support and thank you for all the help.
Welcome. Okay, the question is, the background to it is that I work very closely with a lot of support on diabetes self-care management for underprivileged as well as privileged community in the country. I have an app regarding that. Now, the question is related to herbs and spices. When I work on this app, I bring in different consultants giving input, and we get a lot of input on the types of herbs and spices that can be used on a day-to-day basis. Like somebody says, you have 1 gram of cinnamon powder in the morning, it helps. Somebody says fenugreek helps. So are these fact, or these are just some kind of a myth or a story going around?
Okay, let me say that whatever happens, it is not major. So if it helps as a 1% kind of, or 2% kind of, something like that. So I would say still that go after things which really matter. And if we are able to convince people to change their food in such a way that you can keep away all your chronic disease, that is where the focus has to be. If you were to ask me about cinnamon specifically, I'll have to research it and I'll come back to you, and it may help. But if you are taking cinnamon and you are eating a lot of wheat, no amount of cinnamon is going to do anything. So the point is to be extremely focused on keeping the major bad guys out and taking the good food. And the good food are your vegetables in good quantities, in variety of vegetables, the way you cook the vegetables, and the way you eat them, the way you cycle through phases of eating and fasting. It has a lot of studies, and there is a lot of things. I mean, what I touched today is the proverbial tip of the iceberg. So, but this is the way to go. That's what I think.
Yeah, that's correct. But when I work with underprivileged community, it gets difficult for me to explain these kind of vegetables to them, especially when you go to different zones. They will have a very specific, limited kind of food that they eat in all 3 meals. You come to Maharashtra, they'll have a particular kind of food. You go down south, they'll have major rice as a component to it, and maybe urad dal as part of the meal. You go somewhere in Punjab, probably they'll have dal. So this is where I find it difficult. Other places are easy, for a privileged community, it's very easy for me to come back with a structured food for them, or planning a food for them. But for underprivileged communities, where I've been struggling for the last couple of months, trying to figure out what should I recommend to them.
So I have a couple of, I know your job is extremely difficult. My job is difficult because I talk to intelligent people and I cannot convince them. So your job is, I can't imagine how you do it. But important thing is that you tell them that sugar is bad for you. Keep away from sugar, which is very simple message. You can make a lot of messages on sugar and flyers and stuff and everything. So keep away from sugar.
Understood. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank
you. Yeah.
Yes, Madhulika.
Yeah. You're saying that we shouldn't have milk. So is curd a no-no also? Curd or the milk products?
Yeah, curd is just modified milk. We name it curd to glorify it. That is something which is good, something which is different. It's not. Tell me how it is milk is different from curd. Tell me chemically, or does it not have casein in it? Does it not have milk protein in it? Think about it. Everything the curd has, milk has. So curd is just modified milk.
Good evening, sir. I have a question on like intermediate fasting. How efficient is
Hmm.
it for your health? Like there is a different opinion. Some say it is not at all good for your overall health and well-being. Can you put some
Okay.
light?
Okay. Intermittent fasting has now come on to the fore with lot of studies being done on it. And intermittent fasting is a way to let the body rejuvenate. It's a way to let the body repair itself. Because what happens is when you're continuously eating, your body is metabolizing whatever you're eating. And so the body's machinery of metabolism is working all the time, all the time, all the time. So mitochondria are continuously burning your fuel. So they don't get any time to rest. So
Yes.
intermittent fasting will give that machinery time to rest. Secondly, what intermittent fasting does is it triggers something which is known as autophagy. Autophagy is a manner in which the body gets rid of dead cells, it gets rid of weak cells and rejuvenates new cells and makes new cells and makes new molecules, and especially in the intestine. So once you do a intermittent fast, your body rejuvenates from the inside out.
Thing, sir. Like, is it advisable for a person who has had some gastric issues?
Absolutely, absolutely must. For any intestinal or stomach issue, intermittent fasting is going to work wonders.
It's not going to like aggravate the like
No,
gas
no,
and
no,
other problems.
certainly not.
Okay.
Exactly, that is another question I should have put in the this thing as a myth. That
Yeah.
should we take frequent small meals? No,
Yes, sir.
capital No, no. You must
Yeah.
take meals, and the interval between the meals should be large as possible. Oh yeah, let me see.
Is maize better than wheat? Can we use
Yes.
jaggery in place of sugar? And someone else has sent me a question that I want to read out also um, about quinoa and lactose-free milk. Are they good substitutes for milk?
So corn is as bad as wheat because corn has what do they use corn for? The corn is used as feed for the horses and feed for the cattle, and therefore what they did is they once they knew how to mess with wheat, they messed with corn 10 times. So the American corn that you get is absolutely poison. Uh, Same problem as wheat. Jaggery in place of sugar is better. It is better than sugar, but then still it is still sweet and it still has it still is a carbohydrate. So it is a complex sugar. So definitely the glycemic index of jaggery is much less than sugar. So if you have to use something, yes, use jaggery.
I heard that oats is rich in calcium and lot of fiber.
Mhm.
So, if like is oats not at all good, or only processed oat is not good?
Okay, so oats, I would be thinking that most of the oat you get is anyway processed. I don't know where you can get raw oats. Number one. Number two, how can you ensure that the oat is not mixed with something which has gluten in it? Because oats are always processed in the same kind of facilities as wheat is processed. So if you want to eat oats, you can eat once in a while, but I would advise keeping away from them. This question of suji. Suji is made from wheat. So this is a no-no. Puffed rice is okay. Besan is fine.
And
Puffed
quinoa?
Puffed rice.
Quinoa is not good.
Celiac can have buckwheat and the other millets available.
Yes, people with celiac can use the jawar, I mean, certainly. Because that is
And
what
that buckwheat, which is also known as kutu ka atta, which is available in
yes,
Braksha
yes.
Tango.
Yes, that is something which is good for you. That's very light.
And the
I actually take that.
and the various millets also,
Yes.
the barnyard and the
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Sajan Kapoor, the Secretary of BOXA,
Yeah.
Bokaro Xaverian Association. I'll propose the vote of thanks. I'll thank, first of all, I'll thank Dr. Anil for such a informative and very like amazing session. And like he cleared many of our myths about what we should eat and what is good for our health. I'll like to thank our principal, Father James, for taking the initiative and doing this, making this possible for us. I'd like to thank our President Madhulika Di and all the seniors, Himakar Bhaiya, Ajay Bhaiya, Pinky Didi, and everyone else. And I'll also like to thank all the Boxons who took out time and they are here, present here for this session. And thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone.